Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. When it comes down to many of these Afro-American Negroes, they are deeply spellbound. And they're so spellbound that whenever you present something that challenges the ideas they have regarding the narrative of the Afro-American Negro, that they practically start losing their minds. Now on Friday, I decided, after getting the cover for Esteem, The Sands of Time from Bill Walko, to do some pre-promotion on a black science fiction group on Facebook. And after I posted the cover of Esteem, The Sands of Time on that Facebook group, I had one of these Afro-American Negroes decide to start debating regarding Esteem's skin tone. And he goes and says that isn't that a white woman? And I explained to him how skin tones work in Photoshop, because when Bill colored the piece, he colored it with some coloring software, and I took some of those same images because so many people were complaining about them, and I went into the Photoshop filter with pictures of black actresses and even different pictures of different skin tones, and at the end of the day, I found out that that was an African American skin tone of a lighter complexioned black person after running that picture through numerous Photoshop colors, but according to this Afro-American Negro, it's a white person. And after I explained it to them, I then went back on Saturday and I found a big post with a whole bunch of emotions and feelings, and this guy was so in his feelings over being wrong that he literally just went off the rails, went and tried to make his own Photoshop picture of my cover, and then went in there talking about how he's making a black version of Wonder Woman. And I had to sit there and look at that and shake my head regarding this Afro-American Negro's behavior, because when I took a critical look at that Afro-American Negro's behavior on Facebook, it showed me not only was he in his feelings, but it was clear to me that this Afro-American Negro was jealous. And his jealousy showed all throughout his posts, because for him to get that emotional to the point where he's going to go into Photoshop with an image that he disagrees with and then try to recolor it and then go talk about my other works shows how deeply emotional this guy was over a black man creating a story about a time travel romance featuring an ancient Egyptian princess who has an African complexion. And that's what he was really jealous about, the fact that a black man was going out here and writing and publishing a book that featured a black princess and was talking about ancient Egypt. And that's what he was jealous about. And that's what he was all in his feelings really about, was about a black man making something that he couldn't make himself. Because I asked myself, where was all this anger when they were making that Black Panther movie and the frenzy for that Black Panther movie that built up over the last 2 to 3 months of this year? Where was all that frenzy? Because when they made that Black Panther movie, it was about a black character who lived in a fictional African kingdom made up by two white Jews. However, there was no anger or outrage about your Black Panther from any of these Afro-American Negroes on these science fiction web pages on Facebook, nor was there any outrage regarding this Black Panther on YouTube regarding this film about this African king from this fictional kingdom that was created by two white Jews. No, when it came down to this Black Panther, you had all of these black people sitting there embracing this Black Panther, and some of them were so delusional about this Black Panther, they were acting like Wakanda was a real kingdom. And they were acting like Wakanda could be a real place. In fact, we had some of these Negroes out here talking about they wanted to do an exit so they could go and establish their own Wakanda. So this shows me how deeply dysfunctional these Negroes are and how deeply spellbound these Negroes are. Because they're all enthusiastic about a fictional African kingdom created by two white Jews, but the black man who writes a time travel romance story featuring a black man having a romance with a black Egyptian teenage princess, this they have an issue with. Two 14-year-old black teenagers expressing black on black love in an image on a book cover. These Afro-American Negroes, they are mad and angry about that, but they are in love with the idea of going to a fictional African kingdom made up by two white Jews. I'm a screenwriter. I can't make up stuff this completely insane. But in the Afro-American Negro community, this is considered normal. The black man who goes out of his way to write a story about a black Egyptian princess and having a time travel romance with a black teenager from the 1980s, this makes the Afro-American Negro angry. But the movie that is, again, about a fictional black African king from a fictional Africa in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the Marvel Universe, created by two white Jews, the Afro-American Negro is gleeful and ecstatic about supporting. And he's so gleeful and ecstatic about supporting that imaginary Wakanda. Again, his behavior is to the point where he will go out and take entire schools of children to go see this Black Panther movie. He will go out here and go out to this movie with boxes of fried chicken, but the black man who creates a fantasy time travel romance, they got a problem with that. Only in the black community do you see this type of complete and utter dysfunction. And the reason why you see that complete and utter dysfunction again is because this Afro-American Negro is jealous of another black man writing a story about the black experience and writing a story about a black experience that refutes his narrative. Because when it comes down to this Afro-American Negro and his narrative, yes, he wants to say that blacks are a part of ancient Egypt, but they're only a part of ancient Egypt if he can get some approval from some sort of white man, or he can get the attention of some sort of white man. But if I come out here and I'm not looking for any sort of attention or approval from white people, then there's something wrong with that image. And that's the real issue here, is that you have a black man acting on his own without seeking the approval of a white man. And because the straw man argument that they use regarding light skin and dark skin, that's a straw man argument, because the real issue is that they want to use the light skin to tear down the image so that they don't have to go out here and support the work. They don't want to go out here and spend money on the work. And most importantly, they don't want to give money to a black man, because they know that if they have to go out here and support a black-owned product, they are going to have to give money to a black man. And that's something many of these Afro-American Negroes don't want to do. They want to sit here and talk about group economics. They want to sit here and talk about supporting black-owned businesses. But when a black businessman like myself goes out of his way to try to create a positive image of an African American, and then show you an African American in ancient Egypt, and then show you a black woman in ancient Egypt, they look for some sort of excuse not to support it because they don't want to put that money in a black man's hands. However, they will go out of their way to spend $300 to $500 million on the Black Panther, a black superhero created by two Jews in a fictional African kingdom, and they'll do that because they hope to get the attention and the approval of their white slave masters. And they're hoping that after they get the attention and approval of their white slave masters will go out there and validate them. Unfortunately, many of these Negroes who are looking for that validation and are angry at me won't turn any of their anger at Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Studios, because after your Kevin Feige got your $300 to $500 million that you spent at the box office making Black Panther the #1 movie in America for 2 to 3 weeks straight, what did your Kevin Feige do? What your Kevin Feige did was he took your $300 to $500 million, gave you a middle finger by making Captain Marvel the flagship character of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You make this movie the fastest movie to make $1 billion ahead of almost 19 other movies. And what your Kevin Feige does is he completely disregards your black dollar in order to push white supremacy by taking this Captain Marvel, a completely untested character at the box office, a completely unpopular character with comic fans, who has failed to launch almost seven volumes of her own book, and he makes her the flagship character. And the only reason why he makes her the flagship character is because she's a white woman, and he wants to promote the idea that a white person is going to lead the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it be a white man like Iron Man or a white woman like Captain Marvel. And they could care less about your black dollars that you spent on that Black Panther, and that's the reason why they would just brush all that off. Because if we look at the merit, your Black Panther should have been the flagship character of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the racists at Disney didn't want to see a black man heading up their product. No, they didn't want little children sitting there going out to buy a black product, because that really is detrimental to their whole narrative. All these people who run Disney are white, and because they control their media money, they control their media, and their narrative that they want to promote is white supremacy. But you can't tell that to the Afro-American Negro. He would rather sit there and stew in his emotions over a lighter-skinned black woman on the cover of an SJS Direct book, and getting all in his feelings over a lighter-skinned black woman on the cover of an SJS Direct book, and use that as an excuse not to support the SJS Direct book. But he'll go out of his way to be enthusiastic over a Marvel Studios movie featuring a African prince who came from the imagination of two Jews, a company like Disney, which you spent over $300 to $500 million elevating this black character created by two Jews. And you sit there and you're not angry at Kevin Feige for giving you a middle finger in ignoring all the money you spent. No, you would rather get mad at me and express all your vitriol over the cover of an upcoming book that's coming out this October, because you're mad at me for going out here and making an effort to do something on the same level that your Disney is doing right now. And the reason why you're angry about that is because it means that if I can go out here and make this kind of effort, people may start looking at you and expecting you to start making that type of effort. And that's what you're really mad about. And that's why this guy was all in his feelings. Because when it comes down to many of these Negroes, they like the idea of being dependent on the white slave masters. And they need the white slave masters. They'd rather take the white man's ice rather than the black man's ice, because they don't want to be responsible for making their own ice. And this is why some of them believe that the white man's ice is colder, because they would rather get the white man's ice because they believe it's better, and it's better because he made it and he worked for it. But the ice a black man makes, they don't want, because it means that that black man is going to make efforts to go out here to improve himself. He's going to take responsibility for himself. And they don't like the idea of seeing a black man trying to make efforts to elevate himself, because that again means that someone may start asking them to take responsibility for themselves. So they come at you with these straw man debates about light skin and dark skin in the hopes of making excuses not to buy a product, and then they want to tear that product down because they don't want to support it, because they don't want to see another black man succeed. They don't want to see another black man succeed, but they'll sit there and give all their money to a white man and a white man's company, and they'll sit there and they'll do that, and that's perfectly fine with them. And that shows me how deeply spellbound they are, because when I wrote Easting the Sands of Time, I had the best of intentions when I wrote the story. I wanted to write a story featuring a black Egyptian princess because I wanted to create a positive image of a black princess for black girls. And after seeing movies like The Princess and the Frog, where your Princess Tiana was practically a frog for 2/3 of the movie, I wanted to show you a movie that showed you a black princess who was there throughout the whole story. And I also wanted to show people that with this black princess, that we could see a black princess falling in love with a black man. And I also had planned this whole story to feature a completely all-black cast. Now, when I wrote this story, I was inspired by several actors like Sally Richardson, who I saw as Easting, Samuel L. Jackson, who I saw as Osiris, Angela Bassett, who I saw as Isis, and your Michael Ealy, who I saw as John Haynes. Now, when I wrote the story, again, I only thought of an all-black cast, but according to many of these Negroes in these sci-fi groups, these Negro nerds, I'm a sellout. I like white women, but I wrote this with the best of intentions, and my intention, again, was to give people the princess that your Disney is not going to give you, because when you look at Princess and the Frog, the princess was not even a princess for most of the movie. She was sitting there with this Arab guy, and there was never any relationship as related to showing black on black love. With Easting the Sands of Time, I wanted to show you that black on black love, and I wanted to give people that same type of romance that people would get in many of these Disney movies. But I see that in spite of all my good intentions, this Afro-American Negro just wants to take me down the road to hell. And the reason why he wants to take me again down the road to hell is because the Afro-American Negro's jealousy prevents him from seeing what I'm trying to do in his best interest and what I'm trying to do to try to elevate our people to another level. Now, I'm not going to let this discourage me when it comes down to many of these jealous Afro-American Negroes. I'm going to still keep persevering and continuing to publish the books that I want to publish. And I'm going to make every effort to continue doing what I need to do, because I understand that I have to continue to do what I need to do, because in spite of these people who don't want what I have to offer, I have to continue to offer products there for those who do want my products. And with this Easting the Sands of Time, I plan on releasing this in October as part of the SJS Direct Fantasy Flashback. And this is a great story you really need to pick up, because this is the type of story many black people say that they want, and this is the type of story that when you read it, it will give you a unique perspective on ancient Egypt. It will give you a black perspective on ancient Egypt, and it will also give you a perspective on the culture of ancient Egypt and the history of ancient Egypt from the SJS Direct universe. So you definitely want to pick up this Easting the Sands of Time, because it's a great story, and it's a story that I believe you'll enjoy, because it gives you a picture of ancient Egypt from an African American perspective, and a perspective from the African American experience. Again, Easting the Sands of Time will be available in paperback and e-readers this October. And if you want to try some of the other Easting series books on Amazon.com, you may do so by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of the other SJS Direct titles, you can also find them on Amazon.com as well. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.